Recontextualizing the Kyra synthesizer, a personal synthesis. I recognize the word synthesizer mostly from the philosopher Hegel, who uses it in part of his triad of the progress of the thought, of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. Hegel's free artists of themselves, who are Shakespeare's Cleopatra, Iago, Falstaff, and Hamlet. Those are the characters he was referring to as free artists of themselves. Perhaps the meaning of Kyra is beautiful girl in Greek, so that would be from Hegel's foursome Cleopatra, who is a beautiful woman in Shakespeare's play Antony and Cleopatra. But beautiful girl is a part of the poem Blue Girls by John Crow Ransom, which goes at the end, "For I could tell you a story which is true. I know a lady with a terrible tongue, blear eyes fallen from blue, all her perfections tarnished, yet it is not long since she was lovelier than any of you." Now, looking at the synthesizer, you come to the control panel, and since to control suggests to will, then to use the control panel on the Kyra is to do what the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of in his book, The Will to Power, where he says, "Thought is the strongest and most persistently exercised function in all stages of life, and also in every act of perception or apparent experience. Obviously, it soon becomes the mightiest and most exacting of all functions, and in time tyrannizes over other powers. Ultimately, it becomes passion in itself." On the control panel is the display screen, and Harold Bloom warns us that the screen, which means computer screen, movie screen, smartphone screen, the screen presents a danger to deep reading. Therefore, I will move on to the controls. The rotary control has the word rotary, which can mean turn, but I also imagine that it connects to the word rot, where in Shakespeare's As You Like It, Jocks says, "And so from hour to hour we ripe and ripe, and then from hour to hour we rot and rot." The system controls have system as the name so that the word will connect to the poet William Blake's, quote, "I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's." The page buttons connect to Shakespeare's Love's Labor Lost, where there is a page boy who helps to sing the two songs at the close of the play. The cursor buttons can be imaginatively connected with cursing, as in God's curses upon people at the end of Deuteronomy if they do not follow the codes. The exit button can connect to any stage directions of a play of Shakespeare's, but the one I like most is exit pursued by a bear in The Winter's Tale. The edit buttons remind me of the trade of William Blake's as a printer's devil, a proofreader. The undo buttons can link to Sigmund Freud's concept of the defense mechanism of undoing, where somebody undoes a past event or emotion by means of this defense. The store button brings to mind the idea of pigeonholing, which is what Richard Rorty says of philosophers do with their knowledge. The shift lock buttons, the button connects to Walt Whitman's chant, "Unscrew the locks from the doors." The navigation controls imply the action of sailing, which if it was not a great part of Moby Dick, then the crew never would have hunted the whale because they would have stayed on the land. The multi-buttons remind me of the button molder of Peer Gynt, who will meet him at the crossroads. The part buttons also remind me of Walt Whitman's A Part and Parcel of God. The bank buttons connect to riverbanks, as in that beautiful poem by Elizabeth Barrett Browning called a musical instrument. The patch buttons connect to the poem by Walt Whitman called Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, where he says in section 6, "It is not upon you alone the dark patches fall. The dark threw its patches down upon me also. The best I had done seemed to me blank and suspicious." The transpose buttons remind me of trances, as in Shakespeare's The Tempest with Ferdinand brought on by Prospero. In the oscillator section, the word oscillator, which basically means to turn off and on, the on here could connect to William Ellingham's poem, The Fairies. High on the hilltop the old king sits, and the off may connect to and they're off, as in a horse race. The voice oscillator buttons connect to Walt Whitman's poem, Song of Myself, where in section 5 Whitman says, "I believe in you, my soul. The other I am must not abase itself to you, and you must not be abased to the other. Loaf with me on the grass, loose the stop from your throat, not words, not music, nor or rhyme. I want not custom or lecture, not even the best, only the lull I like, the hum of your velvet voice." In the wave mode, I recollect the waves again of Walt Whitman, as in "Out of the cradle endlessly rocking, where the waves on the shore continually whisper the low and delicious word death to Whitman as a boy." The hypersaw mode makes me think of saws, but that connects to the verb to see from its past tense, as here in Percy Bysshe Shelley's poem, The Two Spirits. I see the light and I hear the sound. The filter section and its selection buttons bring me back to Whitman once more, where he will be the filter and fiber of your blood, as at the close of Song of Myself. The envelope generator section makes me think of the generations as the falling leaves, Homer's metaphor of the coming and going of descendants. The amp and aux EG select buttons could refer to Prince Hamlet's famous to be or not to be speech, where he brings up the great pitch which could go with amplitude. The LFO buttons connect to Ralph Waldo Ellison's novel Invisible Man, where at its close the narrator says he speaks to you on lower frequencies. Hold on just a second here. All right. The mod matrix brings to my mind that part of Hartcrane's poem, The Broken Tower, where the matrix of the heart lift down the eye, and the effects sections with its effects select buttons and controls make me think of the poem Castaway by William Cooper, where at its end he says, "No voice divine the storm allayed, no light propitious shone, when snatched from all effectual aid we perished each alone, but I beneath a rougher sea and whelmed in deeper gulfs than he." With the arpeggiator section, I think of the action of going up and down the scales, so this reminds me of the anonymous poem's title of "Gay go up and gay go down, to ring the bells of London town." Finally, the system configuration with its system edit makes me think of that passage in William Blake, "I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's."